Hey there, Jake here from CVP. Sony's Alpha series of cameras have consistently provided some of the best value performance in the hybrid mirrorless camera space over the past few years, with the incredibly popular A7 III and A7 IV being staples for both photography and videography users. Well, today we are taking a look at the long-awaited A7 V. A lot has changed since the A7 IV came out in 2021, and the camera market is more competitive than ever. So does this highly anticipated camera compete? Well, let's take a look. Sony were kind enough to invite us to their office in Weybridge to learn more about the camera and get hands-on time with it for some creative and studio testing. This is a pre-production camera, but they were happy with us conducting any testing we wanted to, and they haven't had any input on this video. During our time with the camera, we managed to take a quick walk around Brooklyn's museum while we still had some light, and then headed back to Sony's studio for some testing. The A7 V features a brand new 33 megapixel sensor which hasn't been used in any camera before. It also has Sony's latest Bion's XR2 processor inside, again not seen in any other camera before. This new processor combines the regular XR and AI processing units found in other cameras and combines them together into one dedicated chip, not two separate ones. This should result in faster performance, more efficient power usage, and improved heat management. This sensor is a partially stacked full-frame CMOS sensor with a resolution of 7008 by 4672 and a rough size of 35.9 by 23.9 millimeters, giving it a rough pixel pitch of roughly 5.12 microns. And Sony are rating this camera to capture 16 stops of dynamic range. There have been a few cameras recently that use a partially stacked sensor, such as the Nikon Z6 III and ZR and the Panasonic S1 II. A partially stacked sensor can help with improved sensor readout times, higher recording frame rates, and autofocus speed, but can also limit dynamic range. So let's take a look at some of our Latitude testing. As we said earlier, Sony very kindly let us use their studio, but we didn't have our regular setup we use in our studio for our regular Latitude testing. So please do not compare these results to any others we've conducted previously. For this test, we had an A7 IV for us to compare the A7 V to, and we used a 35mm f1.4 Sony Zeiss lens. Right, let's take a look at the results. Looking at overexposure, we can see that up to 4 stops over, it performs well. At 4 1/3 stops over, we can see Sam's skin starting to clip, and from here, we see more and more clipping. Looking at the A7 IV performance, it looks very similar. The image looks good up to 4 stops over again, with clipping from 4 1/3 on Sam's skin. They look very similar overall here. Moving on to underexposure, we can see the A7 V performs well down to 3 stops under. Colour is held well and it's not too noisy. At -4, we can see a little shift in colour and a bit of desaturation. From here, performance is actually surprisingly good for such a high resolution sensor, even at -6. Compared to the A7 IV, the new A7 V does look better. At the same stops, the A7 IV looks noisier with some shifted colour compared to the A7 V. The A7 V looks much more detailed and less pink than the A7 IV. I'm looking forward to comparing this camera to others in our studio when we can, so let us know what you want us to compare the A7 V to in the comments below. One thing I noticed while going through the camera's menu was a new tab called 4K Angular View Mode. This isn't adjustable when the camera was set to 25p, however in the higher base frame rates like 50p, it is. With this mode enabled, the camera prioritizes the angular view of recording, aka you get a less cropped image, but it disables part of the noise reduction processing. With it off, the camera will crop in slightly, but performs the regular noise reduction processing. We conducted our Latitude testing with this mode toggled on and off as well to see what this actually means in regards to performance. Looking at overexposure, it looks like there is no real difference. In our underexposure testing, there is a slight difference in detail between the two. The wider field of view image looks more detailed if we zoom into Sam's skin and our chart. However, the tighter image does look ever so slightly less noisy. This is most likely because of the extra noise reduction which is happening, so what mode you have it in will depend on what you'd rather, but I think most will want to not crop in, so I think it being on will be the most used mode. Both of these modes are oversampling the image from their cropped resolutions, which Sony has said it's 7K when it's on and 6K when it's off. When it comes to high frame rates, the A7 V has seen an upgrade over its predecessor. You can now capture 4K up to 60 frames per second in the camera's full frame mode, and then you can go up to 4K 120 frames per second but only with a Super 35 crop. You can also do these same frame rates in HD, but going into 1080p does not increase the maximum frame rates. Looking at our example shots that we managed to shoot, the image looks really nice. The footage looks detailed and decently clean. As well as going above your base frame rate, you can also go below it in the S&Q mode as well, like you can with Sony's other cameras. Given that this camera now uses a partially stacked sensor and the improved frame rates possible to record with it, this camera should have a decently faster readout speed than the A7 IV and the FX2, which has a readout time of roughly 27 milliseconds in its full frame mode. I asked Sony for an exact readout time of the sensor, which they couldn't disclose, but they did say that they are able to achieve 4.5 times faster readout speed with the A7 V compared to the A7 IV. This would make it very, very quick at around 6 to 7 milliseconds, which is even faster than the FX3. Looking at our examples here, you can see a bit of warping of the straight lines in the shot. Of course, this is a worst case scenario though. It's really hard to say what the readout is of the sensor without doing our regular, more scientific testing, which we will be doing as soon as we get hold of a production camera into our studio. The A7 V doesn't have a stated dual native ISO number, but we did manage to run through the different ISOs in the camera's flexible ISO mode and then in the regular mode in S-Cinetone. In S-Log3, the camera's base ISO is 800. Looking at the rushes in Resolve, we can see that there is a significant step in noise reduction at 8000 ISO. When in S-Cinetone, it has a base of 125, and we can see this step again at 1250, which lines up with the 3 1/3 stop range in S-Log3. We shot our creative footage before learning about this dual base, so some of our example clips were actually captured at 6400 ISO, which isn't ideal as 8000 would have been much cleaner. But we did conduct our Latitude testing after figuring this out, so we managed to do some tests at both the low and high bases. Looking at our ISO 800 clip at -6 compared to the same light, but at 8000 ISO, we can see just how much better it is boosting your ISO in camera versus in post. Comparing the different bases at the same stops though, we can see noise is blockier at 8000 ISO, but that's not too surprising. 8000 does look good though when properly exposed. It's a touch noisier than the 800 base, but it looks good overall. In conclusion though, I think low light performance is good with this camera. You have no CMOS smear, which some other cameras at this price do suffer from. One area I was kind of expecting something a little bit different from Sony was the camera's recording formats. But if you've used a modern Sony camera, you're going to be pretty familiar with the options you have to choose from with the A7 V. You can record in a mix of different XAVC formats, including intra and long GOP compressed versions in a range of 4208-bit and 4210-bit options. You can also shoot with H.265 compression, but this is limited to 24, 50, 60, 100 and 120p. You still don't have an option to record at 25 or 30p, which is a bit of a shame. You are also limited to just UHD formats. There is no option for DCI 4K in this camera. I think for most hybrid users and videographers, this is a solid enough range of recording formats. You have more compressed, lighter codecs for faster turnaround jobs, and then larger intra-frame recording when you want the best possible image out of the camera. However, if we do see an FX version of this camera, I'd love to see some kind of compressed RAW format added, as all of this camera's competition now allow you to shoot some kind of compressed RAW internally. The camera also has a full-size HDMI port which you can output a clean feed from, but there is no RAW output possible. And you can now stream via the USB-C as well in 4K up to 30 frames per second, and Sony are claiming it can stream 24/7 in HD, which are both improvements over the A7 IV. The A7 V has the typical range of picture profiles to choose from that you would expect from an Alpha series camera. This includes S-Log3, S-Gamma3.Cine, S-Cinetone, and you can also load in your own LUTs, which you can burn straight into your rushes. It's good that you have a range of quick deliverable profiles and S-Log3 if you want to colour your footage in post. The colour from the limited footage we captured does look nice, and we did a very rough side-by-side with an A7 IV, and they look very similar, though this isn't a good test in the slightest. Again, thanks to the new processor, Sony have implemented a new auto white balance function, which uses AI to hopefully improve auto white balance accuracy. This should be really helpful for photography, but for video, I would want to test it further to understand how it works, as auto white balance is something shooters rarely use when shooting video, us included. Especially on Sony cameras, as their custom white balance function is one of the better ones in mirrorless cameras. The A7 V features a step up in stabilization performance compared to even more modern Alpha and FX cameras. It is a 5-axis sensor-based system that is rated for 7.5 stops in the center of frame and 6 in the corners, which is a step up from the Sony A7 IV and FX2. As with previous cameras, you can completely toggle stabilization off, have the standard stabilization, and then active and dynamic active modes. The two latter modes crop in on your image to provide even more stabilization power. Dynamic active was actually introduced with the FX2, and it's good to have this here in this camera. It's been designed for filming while walking and running in more extreme scenarios. When out filming creatively, it was immediately apparent in the regular steady shot mode the improvement in stabilization, just moving the camera for basic handheld shots. We did some very quick tests with the different modes, and I think even the regular steady shot mode looks really good. These tests are at 24mm on the GM2 24-70. We can see a little bit of wobble in the corners, but it's not awful. The new dynamic active mode looks really good when walking here. I really want to get this camera side by side with the Panasonic S1 II, as Panasonic have had some of the best stabilization performance for a while now, and I'd be really intrigued to see how these two compare. When it comes to audio, the A7 V has your standard 3.5mm mic in and headphone output, and you can use MI Shoe audio accessories with it as well. It's also the first Sony Alpha camera to feature some new noise reduction options. This includes both wind and a low pass filter option for both the built-in internal microphone and external sources, which is really cool. We managed to do some very quick tests of these, but they are inside, so I doubt the wind noise reduction is really going to do much. We did both the tests using the internal mic and a DJI lav mic from a Mic 2 kit, plugged directly into the 3.5mm mic input on the camera body. I'm going to let them play out now and then talk about them afterwards at this timestamp.
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
You can definitely hear a difference between the two modes, and I think both will be helpful for different situations. Sony also mentioned that this processing will work when using MI Shoe mounted audio accessories. When it comes to autofocus, the A7 V has Sony's most up-to-date performance, and it works really well. It uses 759 points across 93% of the frame, which is similar to the specs found in the A7 IV. But because of the improved XR2 processor, it now has all the AI tracking bells and whistles that we've seen in Sony's modern cameras like the FX2 and the A7C II. And the XR2 processor should also speed up performance. We managed to do a quick test of Sam walking towards the camera with the settings set to the fastest possible, and the camera does an excellent job of keeping Sam in focus throughout the shot. Sony's autofocus is still one of, if not the best systems for video currently. The camera also has an improved range of subjects it will detect, and there is now an auto mode which you can define what it detects across the different subjects. Otherwise, it has your pretty typical controls that you would expect to see on a Sony camera. Though Sony has added new custom focus area presets, extra small and extra large focus areas in this mode, and also added a new tracking speed mode. Physically, the camera has changed in a few ways from the A7 IV. First off, the grip has changed and I think slightly improved. It's roughly the same size and is about 40 grams heavier, which in practice really isn't that noticeable. It seems to use the same EVF as the A7 IV, but has a much nicer rear LCD. It's larger at 3.2 inches, higher resolution at 1.38 million dot, and uses the fantastic 4-axis style screen found on the A9 III and the Alpha 1 II. This should be the standard mechanism across all of Sony's Alpha and FX cameras, as it's just so versatile. Out on location, the screen was really nice to use, and so is the EVF, though it would have been nice to see a slight improvement here. It also has a new low brightness power saving mode, which will lower the brightness of the monitor to save power while not powering off the camera completely. That way it's faster to take an image quickly as soon as you hit the shutter button. The camera has a decent range of inputs and outputs on the side that are actually a little bit different to the A7 IV. It now has two USB-C ports. This one is the fast one and this one is the slow one. Sony have done this so you can tether to the camera for data transfer and also power the camera via USB if you want to as well. The fast USB will also be great for transferring videos and photos for fast turnaround shoots, and also for monitoring via Sony's Monitor and Control app. As we mentioned earlier, the new processor inside the A7 V is more efficient than the one found in the A7 IV, which when combined with the new dual heatsink design results in longer and more reliable recording times. But this camera is still an Alpha series body, so doesn't have a cooling system like an FX camera, where you'll get more reliable recording times. With such a limited amount of time with the camera, we didn't get a chance to run any proper overheating tests, but we didn't run into any issues during our time shooting with the camera. The A7 V features the same menu system as the rest of Sony's modern cameras, but does have a few things worth noting that have been added or changed. It now has Sony's focus breathing correction mode, auto framing for solo creators, and Sony's excellent Zebra tool, which is crucial for correct exposure. As we normally do, our perspective on this camera is primarily from a video user, but the A7 V is of course a very competent stills camera as well, and is definitely made for photographers and hybrid shooters more than dedicated video shooters. Sony has added and changed a few things that make this camera an even more well-rounded stills camera. First off, the A7 V can capture 30 frames per second in its electronic shutter mode, or 10 when using the mechanical shutter. It also has the ability to toggle the speed up and down using the continuous shooting speed boost mode. When using the electronic shutter, the camera doesn't have any blackout or stutter when shooting continuously. It also has the pre-capture mode, which was introduced with the A9 III. This allows you to capture a defined time buffer of images the camera is constantly storing on internal RAM when you hit the shutter button. It's dialed in from 0.03 to 1 seconds depending on what you need. The maximum shutter speed has also changed with the A7 V, with it now topping out at 1/116,000th of a second. Speaking of shutters, the A7 V does have a physical shutter, and it's actually the same mechanism as the one found in the A9 III and the Alpha 1 II, which should make it more robust and reliable compared to the one in the A7 IV. It also has an improved buffer. Sony have also reworked the RAW formats for stills. You now have 3 options to choose from instead of a more confusing selection in previous cameras. The RAW files we captured with the A7 V don't yet work in Lightroom, but we did capture some JPEGs alongside them so we can check out the results, and they look nice and detailed from the limited testing that we did. The A7 V does share a lot of existing Sony cameras, such as the overall body design. It uses the same NP-F700 battery used across loads of Sony's other cameras, though it does have improved battery life thanks to the new processor. It has dual CF Express Type A and SD card slots, uses Sony's MI shoe for accessories, and is weather sealed to a similar degree as the A7 IV. This is good as it means there are plenty of media and other accessories already available for it, but of course more will come out once the camera becomes available. The Sony A7 V is going to cost £2,799, including VAT here in the UK, and will only be available body only with no kit lens option. This puts it in line with other options from all of the other main brands, and they all offer different pros and cons. Its closest competitors have to be the Canon R6 Mark III, Nikon Z8 and Panasonic S1 II, which are all incredible cameras in their own right. How does the A7 V stack up against its competition in your mind? Let us know in the comments. The Sony A7 V is a logical next step for Sony's best value mirrorless hybrid all-rounder. Its new sensor and processor combination, robust recording options, and now industry standard color science and profiles allows creators to capture great looking imagery easily no matter if it's stills or moving image. The stabilization is the best I've seen in any Sony camera to date. The autofocus is rock solid, and its improved heat management and battery life will make it more reliable on demanding shoots. I just wish we had more video focus tools, maybe open gate, and more recording options. A 7K recording mode would have been good, and I would still love to see Sony bring in a version of their fantastic XOCN RAW into their smaller cameras. Overall, for its price, the A7 V is an excellent hybrid camera, and I now can't wait to see it get the FX treatment for more video-focused shooting. This camera's performance and specs inside the FX2's body is what really the FX2 should have been. I think if Sony had crammed what they have in this camera into the FX2, but of course with the FX niceties, it would tick a lot of boxes for a lot of video shooters. If you want to come in and test this camera or anything out for yourself, you can book an appointment at our UK or European showrooms where you can get your hands on and test any camera out, rig it up, and check out some lenses with one of our knowledgeable technical consultants. If you want to book an appointment, drop demo@cvp.com and email. Anyway, let us know if you have any other questions about the A7 V in the comments. And if you like the video, please give it a like and maybe consider subscribing so you don't miss out on our awesome upcoming content. And thank you so much for watching.